everything.
Alright guys, we are back in Free Code Camp in the API and Microservice Backend certification. We're doing the image search abstraction layer, and what we're basically building is a return call that does a couple things. One is, say we search for something like lolcats space funny. It's going to return back some information, this URL snippet. It's going to return back about 10 of them. That's the gist of it. The other thing is we want to be able to go to the second page, so we have this offset, and this basically says, hey, if we want to go to page 2 and not get the first 10 results, we want to get 10 through 20, we can offset it. And then the last thing is we want to be able to see the most recently searched strings. What have people been searching for? That's basically what we want to see, and that's what we're going to do. Now, we're going to use for our search API, and I think that's where a lot of the confusion about this comes. There's no mention of getting an API to actually do this, but you have to use an API to do this. And we ended up using the Bing Web Search API because there's a nice node package that made this really easy. But in order for you to do it, and I'll have this link in the description below, you're going to need to sign up for a free account and get your API key in order to be using this. But you don't have to use Bing. It's just what I used, and I think it was pretty clear from the project. But with that being stated, let's go ahead and jump into the project. We're going to start with a brand new folder here. Go ahead and create your folder. We're going to call this new folder, image search, and then for me, YouTube. Alright, cool. And in here, we're going to have a server.js file. This will be our node file. And we're going to install some dependencies. We're going to install all the ones we're going to use right now. First thing first, we have to install npm. So npm init. So npm is going to install. This project's going to be using Express. It's going to be using cores. It's going to be using body parser. It's going to be using Mongoose and MongoDB. But those, and then the Bing API as well. So let's go ahead and install Express. Npm install --save Express. Let's go ahead and make this full screen as well. Cool, Express is installed. We're going to npm install --save cores. And we're going to npm install --save body -parser. And then npm install --save Mongoose. And last but not least, we're going to be installing the node-bing API. That's node-bing API. Right when this is done. Any moment now. There it goes. And npm install --save node, forgot what it was, -bing API. Cool. Alright, now that those are all getting installed in our server file, what we need to do is add our requirements. So we're going to get our requirements and instantiate some of them, basically. So we're going to require Express. I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste this in here. So we require Express. Then we are going to create our Express app, instantiate our Express app with our app variable here. And then we're going to do the same thing for cores, for body parser, for Mongoose. All we're doing is, the only thing different here is we created an app here, and then we're the next thing we're going to do is we're going to instantiate, basically just say that, hey, our Express app is going to use bodyparser.json, and it's also going to have access to cores. Now, the one I am going to type out is slightly different, is our Bing. We're going to go ahead and create a Bing variable, and we're just going to require the library that we put in there. But this one's slightly different because it takes in a API key as well. So we're going to require node-bing-API. Now on top of that, what we're going to do is we're going to have our ACC key, which is the second parameter here. And it's an object that takes ACC key, and then it's going to take in the string of your API key. You're going to have to get this from the Bing web search API. That's which one I use. Cool. And if you're interested in the documentation for Node Bing API, that will be in the description below as well. A lot of good links there, so that you can, you know, if you just need a little bit of guidance, so you don't want the whole thing built out, you can do that as well. So, all right, now that we kind of instantiated what we're going to be doing here, let's go ahead and listen for our app, make sure everything's going well. So we're going to do app.listen. And we're going to have this thing called process.env.port. This is basically going to check the port for when we go on Heroku, if it exists. Right now it doesn't, so we're going to have, or it's port 3000 so that we can work locally. We're then going to have our callback function here. And all we're going to do is console.log, server is running, or whatever you want to put to see that everything's going well. Let's go ahead and let's go ahead and launch our node. I'm using NodeMon. I highly encourage you to get that installed as well. And so if everything is going, we should get, cool, our server is running, we set up everything. Now, the first thing to kind of do is you want to get comfortable with creating a get call. So we want to actually be able to pass in our data from our get call. And so if you'll look at the URL here, it goes API image search, then it takes in a search parameter, then it takes in this query, this optional query string right here called offset. So let's go ahead and set up our get call so that we can do exactly that. We won't worry about the logic too much. We got to break it down piece by piece by piece. So we're gonna do how do I want to? What is the comment? Get call with required and not required params to do a search for an image. You could probably write this a little bit better. So what we're going to do is app.get, and we're going to pass in a string here, which is going to be /API/image search, and then we're going to have this /optional value, which in my case I just call it SearchVal, and then we're going to have this asterisk. What this asterisk is going to be, basically, will allow us to add as many additional query strings that we want after this, whether they exist or they don't. That's what this asterisk is doing. And then we're going to do our standard response, request, or next callback function in which things are going to be working. Now, how do we get the SearchVal out of there? Well, it's pretty simple. We're going to have this var, and then these carrots. This is just some ES6 stuff. In future videos, I'm going to continue to try and improve my ES6 notation. So if you have any questions, just put them in the comments below, or do a little bit of research, and hopefully we can both get better at ES6 as time goes on. So we're going to get the SearchVal requirements here. We're not actually doing anything with it, but this will actually get this value. And then we also want a value called offset. So var offset, excuse me, don't forget our curly braces here. Offset is going to be equal to, and the only difference here between, this is a param, but we want to do a query. So we have this query string, so we're going to do rec.query. now let's go ahead and check to make sure everything's working. I like to go piece by piece, right? So we want to res.json, and then we'll pass in an object here, and it'll have something like, we can just go ahead and put SearchVal, comma, offset. Alright, now we need to go to this in the browser, this location. We'll go to localhost, localhost 3000 /API. So we should have, in this one, it's test. So the value we should get back is test, and offset is equal to 2 in our JSON. Cannot match undefined or null. So let's just go ahead and go back here and see what happened. API /image search /test. Interesting. All right, so we're having a little bit of difficulty here. So which one is it saying can't be found or is null? So let's look back at our notes here. SearchVal, offset. All right, we'll try it one more time. Server is running, so it should be API /image search. So we're still getting the same thing. While we're at it, let's go ahead and test this out. We want to see what is actually getting console logged. A little bit of debugging, right? There's better ways to debug this, but a little bit. I think it's good to kind of show these errors to see how, if you were to get stuck, how you'd go about it. Our server is up and running, and what we're going to try and do is see which one of these values is coming back as undefined in our application here. Oh, I see what I did wrong. So this is supposed to be request, and this is supposed to be response. I just looked at it right now. So everything should be good now. Although it's crashing for another reason. Oh, this needs to go to rest. All right, cool. So now everything's going to work. You won't believe how many times I put the request or response in the wrong order. So you'll see now we're able to get the test value, and we're also able to get our query string offset 2 here. Alright, cool. How do we proceed from there? Well, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to actually create a search term. Remember, before we move on to actually getting this data, what we need to do is we need to store this search term here. And how we're going to do that is we're going to do that with MongoDB and Mongoose. The first thing that we should do is we should actually go ahead and create this new folder called models. And in models, we're going to basically have our template, which is going to be the schema for how we want that database, how we want that document, our Mongoose document, to look. So in this case, or how the structure should be, right? When you're building out like a database, you're saying this is going to be a string, this is going to be the name of it, this value is going to be a date, and you know how we expect that to go. This is a pretty basic one, so I just have 2 values in it. We'll go ahead and name this SearchTerm.js. And in here, we're going to require 2 things. We're going to need to require Mongoose, And we're also going to, not required 2 things, excuse me, we're going to have 2 things we need to set up here, which is the first one being Mongoose, and then the second one being schema that is from Mongoose. So now that we have that, and let me go ahead and copy and paste this comment in here. And again, all the source code will be up on GitHub if I ever get around to uploading it. But I hope it will be by the time I release this video, so you guys can have access to it if you have any questions. Okay, so we've kind of instantiated those 2 things. What we need to do now is create our model. This is going to be, let's go ahead and put, this is going to be kind of the setup of the document in a perfect world, right? So I typically just call it the same name as the file, except I throw the word schema on the end. This is going to be a new schema. And then the schema takes in a single parameter, and that is an object, and here we kind of define things. So in our SearchVal, and notice that I have a correlation between this SearchVal and this. To save yourself headache, you don't have to do this, but try and name things the same thing to kind of show that they're correlated. It'll really just make your life a whole lot easier. So this is going to be a string, and then the only other thing that I add here, I don't actually do anything with it, but it said the most recent. I got kind of lazy and just returned a get call for all the search strings. But let's say I do a part 3 to this. This is going to probably be 2 parts, or I do an additional part. What I would want is a date object here, so I could compare it to see when it was created. This will just be a new date in there. Another thing that we could do that I typically was told to do is add a timestamp so that you can see when it was created as well. So we'll do that as well. So, but this is our database. At the end, or our data object. Because we're not actually storing anything from Bing. All we're doing is an API call and returning the data that we want from it. And the only thing in the database in Mongoose that we're actually storing is this SearchVal and this search date. And that will be what we're searching with. So last but not least, what we have to do is we have to basically export our model class. And you have to do that. We want to so our model class basically connects our collection, which is going to be SearchTerms.js, and our schema and our document type. So let's go ahead and create that. We have const model class is equal to mongoose.model, and in here we're going to pass in a SearchTerm. And again, you notice I named most of these things pretty similar. You'll see that I threw schema on this because I think there's a little bit of confusion as to what you're passing in here. If everything's SearchTerm but one's a string, and so because we need access to this in a different file, we need to go ahead and do module.exports our model class, and we have our entire document set up now. Cool. Before we move forward, why don't we just go ahead and save a document to the database. And we need to create our search term. We have to connect. We have to require the directory, and we have to connect to Mongoose. So we have to require the schema. Is the first part. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to do const, and you'll see again similar thing. Search term is equal to require. And in here we're going to put the location of this file right here, which is ./models/search-term. So we're basically required this. We're basically importing this right here, the schema. And the next thing that we need to do is we just need to go ahead and connect to the Mongoose server, which is our database. And in here we're going to have this process.env.mongodb_URI. This is so that if we ever move to Heroku or there's a port there, that we can go ahead and use that, or a database we can go ahead and use that. Or locally, we can go ahead and pass in MongoDB's :// and then the collection we're trying to connect to, which in this case is MongoDB localhost search terms. You'll notice that there's an S onto this. Mongoose will, by default, pluralize this because it's the collection search term has multiple things in it. I guess this is kind of the logic. It's one of those weird things with Mongoose. Now, how do we save this search term? Let's see what's going on here. So we actually have to launch our Mongoose server, if you haven't already. And typically you'll want to close node before you do this. So let's go ahead and open up our folder, go to wherever your Mongoose setting is, and we'll launch that. Excuse me. So here is where mine is located, which is, I believe, program files and MongoDB, server 3.4, bin, MongoD, Mongo. Alright, now that this is launched, let's go ahead and launch this again. Hopefully we won't have any errors this time. Server is running, everything is good. Cool. So we're going to save to the database. The way that we do that's pretty straightforward. We're going to create a data object here. We'll just call it var data and set it equal to a new. And remember, we set up that schema called SearchTerm. It's going to be a new search term. And you're going to want to make sure that your attributes, SearchVal and SearchDate, are what you're setting. Otherwise, it's not going to know where you're trying to put this sort of information. So we're going to have SearchVal, and then we're going to have SearchDate. And this is just going to be a new date. It's going to be the date the moment that it was instantiated. So it's, right, what is it, 2:04 p.m. right now? It's basically going to be that. And from here, what we want to do is just call data.save. Remember, this is our data object that we're creating. We say data.save. And if there's an error, go ahead and do this. So we're saying if there is an error, what we want to do is res.send error saving to database. Although we wouldn't normally, from the assignment, return a JSON at this point, I think it's important to kind of show that everything's working. So we're going to res.json this data. And so what should happen when we get this image SearchVal is we should get an object back that has a SearchVal and a SearchDate, and I believe maybe a primary ID as well. So if we were to do the same exact thing here, wait a second, wait for it. Oh, and it crashed. So we did something that broke things. Unhandled error event? I don't believe so. All right. Let me just copy this over and make sure I don't have a syntax mistake. And here we are going to res.json, and we'll go ahead and just put works colon, res.json works colon works. And we're actually going to, I think it's hitting this one first, so we're going to comment that out. I think that's what was happening there. So when we go back to here, you'll see that we actually hit this, and let's go ahead and pass in our data object, which in this case is data. Does see the creation of it essentially, Cool. So we get this updated at, we get this created at, we get this underscore v, and we get this. This is kind of the primary key. But we also get our search as well as the new date, which is accurate. So you can see that the MongoDB and Mongoose is working correctly. Now in the next video, what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to take our code and with what we have, we're going to get rid of this line. And we're going to connect to the Bing API, and we're going to then create another GET call, which actually will return all of the search terms on a different route. So as always, guys, thank you for watching. Sorry about the little stutter steps in there. This stuff gets a little bit, you know how it is with bugs and things like that. I do my best to try and make it not bug-free, but error-free as we go. I appreciate you guys for watching. If you want to join our Facebook group, Code Taking Caffeine, the link is in the description below. And if you want to support me and you like these videos and you like the channel, you can at patreon.com/codingtutorials360. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. If you're interested in coding bootcamp, check out devmountain.com, where housing is included in your price of tuition. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and support me on Patreon. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.